Hi, this is James Gardner-Octorli here with a book review. Today's book I'm reviewing today, Concrete Island by J.B. Ballard. That is absolutely a gorgeous cover. I really like this cover. Alright, this is from Vintage, and this edition is from September of 1985. It was originally published in 1973. Cover artwork by Chris Moore, really good artist. This was a reread. I tried this book years ago, and I wish I had read more of it all those years ago, but I'm glad I gave this book another try. It turned out to be a really interesting and entertaining book. I really liked it. I love the setting of the story, the whole concept of it. There's not that many characters in the story. There's only three characters that you follow for the story, but there were still interesting characters. And overall, I really enjoyed this book. This book was short, so it took me 2 to 3 days to get through. But my only complaint is I felt this book was a little too short. I wish I had a little more to it because I felt the story could have been expanded onto more if Jerry Ballard added on to the story. I felt it could have gone on further with it, but it was still an interesting book to read. All right, onto the review. Plot: Robert Maitland, driving along the M4 motorway around 3 p.m., suddenly loses control of his Jaguar sedan when a tire blows out. Fighting for control as he's going at 70 miles per hour when the tire finally shreds itself apart, causing to smash through a wooden barrier, then plunges down the grassy slope before crashing into an abandoned taxi. Robert survives the crash despite the fact he wasn't wearing his seatbelt. With only a gash on his forehead, Robert takes the keys out of the ignition, then steps out of the wrecked Jaguar. Taking his leather case and raincoat out of the trunk, then sits down to collect his thoughts, feeling lightheaded as he can't believe he's been in an accident, but is puzzled when nobody seems to have noticed him drive off the highway. Looking around, he sees other abandoned old cars that have been salvaged for parts. He tries climbing the slope, but is very steep. Robert is able to make it to the top and tries waving down passing vehicles, but nobody stops as if they are ignoring him. Growing frustrated, he tries getting closer to the motorway as the speeding vehicles blaring their horns at him or the drivers yelling at him. Robert yells at anyone to stop and even tries running across the medium strip when a car nearly hits him as the driver runs over the wooden barriers which Robert happens to be standing on, causing him to be sent up in the air and lands back down the slope. When Robert awakens, he finds his right leg is badly injured and has trouble moving as he tries climbing the slope again, but the pain is unbearable and returns back to the wrecked Jaguar. Using a bottle of alcohol, he pours it over his wounds and wraps bandage around it while drinking the alcohol. He passes out in the back seat of his car as it's getting dark outside. The following morning, Robert awakens as his wounds have swollen and it is painful to put any pressure on his injured leg. He limps over to the other wrecked cars and pulls an exhaust pipe off a flipped car and uses it as a makeshift crutch. Robert then lifts the hood of his Jaguar and loosens the rubber tube attached to the radiator, drinking the water. He then uses the empty bottle to fill it with the remaining water. Knowing it will be impossible to climb up the slope again, he plans to break through the mesh fence that's blocking the other side. Dubbing the area he's stranded in as the island, Richard takes the Jaguar toolbox and carries it over to the mesh fence. Looking through it, he can see a World War II air raid bunker along with the remains of old torn-down buildings. Unable to loosen the bolts holding the fence in, Robert limps back to his Jaguar and gets some rest. He is later awoken when it begins raining. Collecting the water along with standing out to wash the dirt and oil off himself, once it stops raining, Robert comes up with another idea to escape the island. He punctures the fuel tank and collects the gasoline and pours it onto the engine, then lights it on fire with a cigarette lighter. However, nobody seems to notice until a driver slows down, pulls over to look down at Robert. Unable to speak, he waves at the driver only for him to toss his half-eaten sandwich down at him and drives off. Frustrated by this but is starving, Robert picks up the sandwich and eats it. He'll have to find another way out of the island as he searches for anything he can eat. After finding a way onto the other side, Richard explores the air raid shelters, finding relics from the past and signs that someone else has been living here. Feeling tired, pain along with a fever, Richard tries to get some rest but is awoken when a big rat tries eating his wound. He knocks the rat off with his crutch. Suddenly, someone enters the bunker and attacks him, knocking him to the solid concrete floor, and is carried out. When he awakens again, he is greeted by a beautiful and strong red-headed woman wearing a camel jacket, jeans, and boots. She has him lying on a mattress, giving him clean water and a chocolate bar to eat. She reveals herself as Jane Shepherd, and with her is Proctor, an old yet rough man who collects anything he can find from the wreck and abandoned cars. If it wasn't for Jane, Proctor might have killed him, believing that someone else was trying to take over his den. When nightfall comes, Jane strips naked and sleeps in the bed next to Richard, finding himself drawn to her beauty. The following morning, Richard awakens as Jane returns with supplies that she got from different stores and begins making breakfast. Richard wants Jane and Proctor to help him escape the island, but both of them refuse as neither one of them wants trouble with the law. Richard even tries offering Jane money. She takes whatever he's got, but still refuses to help and seems she would rather have Richard stay with them. Over time, Richard begins to learn more about Jane and Proctor and learns to survive on any scraps he can salvage through, along with getting closer to Jane. Richard is torn if he wants to return back to his old world or stay in the island. Concrete Island was a very interesting and highly entertaining read. I really like the setting of the story and following Robert's struggle to survive while marooned within the motorway, which he dubs it as the island, with its wrecked vehicles, the air raid shelters and bunkers, along with the remains of the badly damaged buildings, give it a post-apocalyptic vibe to it, while mixed with the modern setting of high-rise buildings and motorway, creating a very unique location along with the ambience of the traffic. The three characters we come to know throughout the story were interesting, while I did find Richard a bit of a jerk at times, but showed a kind yet caring side to him. Jane, a very smart and tough woman who knows how to handle herself and would rather stay in the island than return back to the world she doesn't care for, and Proctor, a strange childish-like man who is also troubled by his past, and it's hinted that he suffered terrible abuse which led to him being the way he is. I always liked Ballard's writing style, and his pacing is good. He never adds any unwanted filler or drags out the story. Very detailed with his stories, as he always paints a clear picture of his words, giving the reader lots of rich detail in both places, settings, and characters within the story. While I enjoyed Concrete Island, however, I felt it was too short and wished it had more to offer in the story, as I could imagine this story being expanded more into it, along with adding more characters and other settings within the motorway of England. Overall, I highly recommend Concrete Island. If you want a story that's different and like seeing characters trying to survive in urban landscapes, then check out Concrete Island. You'll enjoy it. And that's for the review today. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'm glad I gave this book another try, as I really enjoyed it. I Oh man, I realized if I just kept reading the story, it would have gone a lot better, as I gave up too soon on it, and I'm glad I gave this book another try. I really liked it. I really like the setting of the story. The whole location is what I really feel is like the best part of Concrete Island. It's just the you got the island, and you got all these like wrecked and abandoned cars, and then on the other side there's like an air raid shelter and bunkers, and then there's like remains of like old buildings and stuff. It just gave it like this post-apocalyptic vibe to it, and I really like the setting of the story. The characters were interesting. I kind of as I said, I felt the story was too short, and I think it would, in my opinion, it would have been a lot better if like the beginning of the story, it just kind of like it just throws you right into it. I think, in my opinion, it would have, the beginning of the story would have been better if Ballard had the main character Richard, like a guy who's just basically who's like becoming frustrated with his world. He's having problems with work, his wife and kids, and it's like the world is just, he just feels like it's just starting to like pressure him, and it's just, he can't take it anymore. He needs like to escape from reality, and this accident happens to be what he's looking for, and he decides, the hell with this world, I'm going to stay here, enjoy this paradise that I've discovered. That to me would have been a lot more interesting. Just a character just basically abandoning their world to live in this area to escape from reality, and then having other characters would have been interesting too, if it would have followed in the story, like, you know, in other locations, if it explored and stuff. And I was even thinking when I was reading this, I thought, like, the one thing that seems to be, you know, struggles food, and like Jane has to go out and get money, and like, you know, get money. It's basically she reveals that she's basically a prostitute, and she uses the money to get food and stuff. And I thought It would have been interesting if they, were to like cause accidents and then just salvage the wrecks for like food and stuff to survive. That would have been interesting too if that was in the story. Um, Overall, I really enjoyed it, and I really hope this book gets made to a film because this would be a really interesting film to see this book adapted into a really interesting film. I think I heard there is a film in the works, like a director and actors have returned to the project as they really want to get it made to a film. So I hope Concrete Island does get made to a good film, and I definitely will be reviewing more J.B. Ballard novels on the channel. All right, that's it for the review. Hope you enjoyed it. And for my next book, I am finally going to do a graphic novel on this channel. I'll start with this one, A History of Violence, written by John Wrangler and art by Vince Locke. I've seen the movie of the same name, and I didn't like it. And when I looked up the plot of the graphic novel, it sounds way better. Like the graphic novel sounds way more over the top and way more violent. The movie is very, to me, the film of the same name is just, it's toned down, like it's more like realistic. And I don't like films that are too realistic. I like when they're over the top, and it's like they just go like go and have fun. That's what I like, and this is exactly what this is. So I'll be start reading this, and hopefully I'll have enough time to squeeze in an art graphic novel before this month is over, and then begin with October Terror. Alright, if you enjoyed this video, please like it, share it, and don't subscribe to October Library, the YouTube channel, and the Facebook group of the same name, a place to watch and review fiction. Until then, I'll catch you later.